Hello and welcome to Mike Drops the Mic. I'm Michael Lyman. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Coach Hue Jackson. Coach Jackson has been a coach in the NFL and in college, and we're excited to talk to him today. Coach Jackson, how are you doing today?
Hey, good. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
So right now, you're the offensive coordinator at Tennessee State. This is your first season as the offensive coordinator there. What has that been like for you so far?
It's been fun. It's been fun, but it's been challenging. Obviously going back to the college games, a little bit different than where I've been for the last several years. But to be with a great group of coaches, a great group of young men who are striving and working at trying to become better, it all makes it worthwhile.
And this is not only your first season there at Tennessee State, but also head coach Eddie George. And he played in the NFL as well. What's that like working with Coach George, knowing that it's the first season for you at Tennessee State and the first season for him?
Well, it's been great. And, I took the job in hopes of helping Eddie George realize his vision for the program. So it's all about him. In my opinion, I'm going to do everything I can to help him attain his goals and what he's trying to do. And that's what we're all, as our coaching staff, is spending our time doing. But it's been a lot of fun. Again, Eddie is a tremendous man, a tremendous leader, and we're all glad that we're there to help him.
And Tennessee State just came off a big win this past Saturday. Now you guys are enjoying the bye week. Are you focusing just on developing your team right now? And when will you start to look ahead against your next game, which is against Tennessee Tech?
I think what's the most important thing is that we figure out who we've been over the first 5 games. We didn't start off really well. COVID kind of knocked us back a little bit, and we were able to move on from that and then played some really good teams and had our growing pains as well. But we think we're starting to hit our stride a little bit. Think we have a chance to get better over these last several games. And but we need to know what we've done in the first 5 weeks so that we can give the players really good information about what we need to improve on.
Okay. And I want to talk a little bit about your NFL coaching career as well. So prior to coaching at Tennessee State in 2001, you were the running backs coach for the Washington Redskins. And then in 2003, you were promoted to the offensive coordinator there. What was that adjustment like, going from being the running backs coach for the Redskins and now being the offensive coordinator in 2003?
It was fun. I mean, it was seamless for me because I came to Washington as the offensive coordinator at USC. So I knew what that job entailed. I knew what Coach Spurrier wanted, what he expected from me. He kind of spelled that out. And I think anytime somebody tells you what they're looking for, it's easy to go do any job, especially a job you're passionate about. So there was no hesitancy on my part. I thought it was a tremendous opportunity for me and made the most of it.
Now, in the NFL versus college, is there a big difference on how big your offensive playbook is? Because as the offensive coordinator, typically you're the one calling the offensive plays. Is there a big size difference between the number of plays? I know plays vary week to week depending on your opponent, but typically how many plays would you have on the quarterback's wristband in the NFL compared to college?
Yeah, it's much different. I think in the National Football League, there's anywhere from 100 to 120 plays, whereas in college, you can't have many more than 40. In order for these guys, you got to remember these guys go to school. Their first responsibility is school and then football. And you have to make sure that you don't, give them too much to where they can't handle it. You try to do the things that you're able to practice. And I think that's the biggest difference between the National Football League and college. Here at the college game, it's really about recruiting. At the National Football League, it's really about performance. Not saying it's not about performance in college, but they have to go to school. Coaches have to continue to recruit players to bring them in. In college, as you know, in the National Football League, we draft them. So it's much different.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense considering how much time they have to spend on their schoolwork in college versus NFL. Mm-hmm. I mean, all you're doing is studying that playbook. So, okay, right. That makes sense. Now, I mentioned that as the offensive coordinator, you're typically the one calling the plays. How much input do the quarterbacks have and the quarterback coaches in the middle of a game when you're trying to make decisions?
A lot. I mean, if there's there's something that I think I need from those particular guys, I'm going to ask. Obviously, I probably have a pretty good idea of where we need to what we need to do, I should say, in order to create an opportunity to score points. But sometimes out there on the field, the quarterbacks may see things that the coaches can't because I'm not on the field. So I do ask in between series, is there something you see, is something you like, something you think we should be doing? And then, there's that constant dialogue between the quarterback coach, the coordinator, and the quarterback in order to make sure that we all are on the same page and working in a united fashion.
Okay. And speaking of quarterbacks, I wanted to talk about Joe Flacco. In 2008 to 2009, you were the Baltimore Ravens quarterbacks coach. So you were working very closely with Joe Flacco, and he actually became the first rookie quarterback in 2008 to win 2 playoff games in NFL history. I'm sure greatly because of you coaching him at quarterback. What was that like working with Joe Flacco, and also how difficult of a transition is it for the majority of these rookie quarterbacks going from college to the NFL?
Well, it was awesome working with Joe. He was the guy that I wanted. We were able to draft him. I think I was right about him. Obviously, he went on and had a very, very good career. I think the transition is hard. When you come into the National Football League, regardless of what school it is, I think it's hard. The difference is for Joe, he came into a very talented team that had amazing defense. When you have Ray Lewis and Elodie Nada and Terrell Suggs and Ed Reed and Chris McAllister, and the list that went on and on and on the defensive team, the whole thing was just don't screw it up, Joe. Just make sure that you do your job and don't do more than what the job asks you to do, because we on the other side, we support you. We have your back. So I think that's what's important for quarterbacks. I think a lot of them sometimes do not become the players they can become because they go into situations where they're not ready. And so they're thrust into playing right away and they don't get the success they want. Then the fans get down on them, players get down on themselves, and some guys can't come out of that. Some guys can overcome that. But Joe was one of those guys that were in a great situation, and he was talented, and he had the best coach in football, so it all worked out perfectly.
Yeah, that was well said. And it's something to think about when you think about rookies in the NFL this season, like Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. It's obviously you got to build a team around the quarterback. And it's something that I wonder about the Jets. It seemed like Sam Darnold's having success right now in Carolina, and whether or not they gave up on him too soon, I'm not sure. But it's something to think about, like Mac Jones in New England's having, a great season so far, and how much of that is the team around him, the excellent defense, just put him in there. And like you said about Joe Flacco, don't screw it up,
Right. Absolutely. I think you said it. I don't think a lot of people think about it that way, because they're drafted into the National Football League at a certain draft pick, and people think, okay, well, this guy should be ready. He should be playing. Well, no one knows that. No one knows what he was taught in college. And sometimes there's some unteaching you have to do to give a guy a chance to play. Sometimes you have to change a whole system for your offensive team to accommodate that quarterback. And then your team's got to be ready for him by, like you said earlier, you got to have the right people around him. Maybe this guy's a runner like Lamar Jackson, when you need more runners. Or maybe this guy's a very talented passer, then you need more pass catchers and pass protectors. So I think all those things work hand in hand together.
Yeah, that's ultimately, football's a team sport. No man can do it by himself. I wanted to talk about you as an offensive coordinator. So you spent time as an offensive coordinator for the Washington Redskins, Atlanta Falcons, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Oakland Raiders. How did those teams differ in terms of their play calling?
Well, I want to say it differs in the play calling. Well, I think that's maybe a good statement, but I think it differs in who's on the team. Every team is built differently. Every organization builds their team differently. So my play calling was tailored to the particular draftable players that I had at my disposal. So we might not have been more talented in certain areas. When I was in Cincinnati, we were talented at all areas. We had really good receivers, we had good linemen, we had really good running backs, and we had tight ends. When I went to Oakland, we had really good runners. We had very young wide receivers and a very good tight end for 1 year. So it's just all different. So your style always is about the players. You got to put the players in position to have success. So whatever is at your disposal, you have to build an offense around those guys in order for that team to have success.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something to consider. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here because I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit later on. But like the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so I'm a Steelers fan, and their
Hmm.
offense hasn't looked as great as it has in the past. And it's hard to pinpoint whether that's mainly on. You don't want to put blame on one guy, but like Big Ben, he doesn't look as great as he has in the past. The offensive linemen, they're super young, a bunch of rookies, and this is the first year for offensive coordinator Matt Canada. If you were the offensive coordinator there, how would you try to fix that offense? What needs adjusted?
Well, I think it's the perfect storm for a coordinator because you brought back a quarterback who's aging, who was once upon a time a very talented player. And sometimes those guys hit the wall. Then you have an offensive line that you just totally, redid. There's a lot of talented players from the center to the right guard to the left guard. Those guys are gone, so I don't know what people expected. Just listening to you and I'm sure certain others, because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, everybody think they're still going to be the same all the time. There's no way they could be the same. You took all the players away. So, and you have a quarterback who's a veteran, but he's older and he can't do the same things he used to do. So they're now finding themselves in dogfights where the Steelers fans are used to winning those games. They're not winning them right now.
Yeah. And I think some of that too is hearing Coach Mike Tomlin talk about the standard is the standard and all that. But, it's good to have tradition and have a standard. But if you don't have the guys aren't playing as great as they once did. It's tough to uphold that standard.
Well, but my point is, what you guys expect Mike to say? Come out and say, "Look, we're gonna get our butt kicked up over our shoulders."
No,
You're not gonna do that neither. Oh well, we're not the Pittsburgh Steelers of old. You're not gonna do that neither. So he has to hold the company line the best he can. But at the same time, I'm sure he's trying to do everything he can to rectify the issues that he sees on his offensive team.
So if you were looking at that offensive team, what issues would you address, do you think, with this upcoming? I know it's a ways away and there's still a lot of season to be played, but if you had first round draft pick next year, are you trying to take a quarterback, offensive lineman? If the choice was in your hands, where do you think they need?
Oh, you got to take a quarterback first and foremost. You got to have the signal caller. And then you got to build people around him. You got to make sure you have the right people protecting him. You have to have the right coordinator giving this particular guy information. You have to have the right offensive line. They have a talented young runner. I think they have some talented pass catchers. So I think where the deficient at right now is in the offensive line, where there was a whole bunch of all pros that are not there anymore. And then obviously, the quarterback is getting up there in age. Right now, he's probably the fourth best quarterback in the division. So, and rightfully so. At one time, he was the best for a long time. Eventually that guy gets knocked off the hill. And I think he's not on top of that heap anymore.
Yeah. And Father Time catches up with all of us. So that's understandable.
Yes.
Now, you went from being an offensive coordinator to being an NFL head coach for the Oakland Raiders and the Cleveland Browns. What was that transition like from you adjusting from being a offensive coordinator to now the NFL head coach?
It was great. I mean, it was time consuming because you wear a lot of different hats. You're not just the head coach of the offense, you're the head coach of the team. So that means defense and special teams and all the particular issues that happen with your team and dealing with the media and everything that comes with that. You're in charge of everything. And if you're going to be the head coach, you have to be in charge of everything. So that's different. And you find that you don't get to coach football when you're that guy. You really got to spend time doing all the other things that don't pertain to football, which makes it difficult at times.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, did you seek out any advice from any prior head coaches or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Who'd you reach out to?
Marvin Lewis, Mike Zimmer, there's a lot of people that helped me along the way. But at the same time, they could just give you ideas based on what the situation is. You're in it, so you have to do what you think is best.
Sure. Now, we talked a little bit about the Steelers, but have you watched any other NFL teams closely this season? And who are you impressed by if you have?
Oh, yeah, there's several teams I've watched. I think Dallas has made a jump. I think they've really improved defensively. I think they're back to running the football. Obviously, Dak is healthy. So they're going to be a problem for a lot of teams this year. We look at the Cardinals and what they're doing. out on the West Coast, in that division, which I thought was a very tough division. But then you get Garoppolo hurt. So that changes the landscape of that particular conference. And then obviously Buffalo, I think, is a class of pro football right now. And they're good. They're good offensively, defensively, and special teams wise. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm always feeling good about the AFC North because I was in it so long and I know how physical and how tough a division it is. Obviously, Cleveland is going to lay, their claim about being one of the better teams. So it's just going to be, I think it's going to come down to a lot of things here. The Chargers last night looked sensational, and obviously Kansas City hadn't played as well. So I think it's going to be a great season down to the wire.
Okay. One of the last things I like to do at the end of the interviews is 7 quick questions, just short answers. Mm-hmm. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the first question I have. So who would you consider to be your football coaching mentors?
Mine would be Marvin Lewis, Mike Zimmer, John Harbaugh.
Okay. In the off season, what are some of your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing?
Working out, just making sure my body is prepared for a season.
What is your favorite football movie?
Brian's Song.
Oh, yeah. That's a great movie. That's one of my dad's favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I'm originally from Pittsburgh. Then I went to school in Cleveland at Cleveland State. And one thing that Cleveland surprisingly has is great nightlife. A lot of people like going out there, and whether that's going out to the bar or, whatever that is. Where did you like to go in Cleveland, downtown?
I really didn't like to go anywhere, to be very honest with you. When you don't win, it's very hard to go anyplace. So I spent my time at home, with the people who support me and people who would be there for me.
My buddy Jacob wanted me to ask you, where was your favorite place to eat in Cleveland?
I think there's a place called Blue Moon? I was down in downtown Cleveland. I really enjoyed going there to eat because I thought it was a very interesting environment. But on top of that, I thought the food was awesome.
What did you like to get there?
It was definitely, they had oysters and salmon. Those things were very tasty there.
Can't go wrong with seafood. So going into practice or a game, what is your favorite type of music to listen to?
R&B.
Okay. And my last question. We talked a little bit about the NFL this season, but what 2 teams do you see playing in the Super Bowl?
I think right now, as I mentioned, Buffalo. I think Buffalo is really, really talented. One of the better teams out there, and I think they're built to last. So I think they're going to be one of the representatives. When I look in the West, there's several teams that catch my attention, but can the Cardinals stay healthy? Obviously they have a tremendous talent on defense. They got 2 of the better rushers in Watt and Chandler. I think getting AJ Green was a coup for them, with Hopkins and the other guys they have. And I think the quarterback is very, very talented, so Kyler Murray. So I think they're playing good football. What's been the problem with them? They play good football. Then after 8 weeks, things normally go backwards. So I hope that doesn't happen. One of my best friends, the defense coordinator there. So I hope things go great for them. Because I think they deserve it. I think they're talented and well coached, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You look at that roster, so many talented weapons on offense. Then, JJ, great acquisition in the offseason, and James Conner and AJ Green. It's team to see for sure.
Right.
Well, so which of the teams do you have winning that if you had Cardinals and Bills in the Super Bowl?
I think Bills would win. I think their veteran players are very talented. I think the quarterback is very talented. Their skill guys are as good as any in the National Football League, and their secondary is as good as anybody in the National Football League. So I think it would be the Bills.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again for coming on and talking to me. I certainly appreciate it. I had a great time, and good luck this season, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for tracking me down on Cameo. That meant a lot. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
All righty. All right.